How many times have you stared through your oven window trying to decide if your chicken's actually done, wondering if this is the moment you should open the door to check? That's exactly what this oven is built to fix. The Typhur Sync Oven uses a built-in wireless probe that tracks your food's internal temperature, and it stops cooking automatically the second your food hits the perfect temperature. Hi, I'm Meme, and today I'm testing Typhur's latest release, their Sync Oven. Thank you to Typhur for sending this to me. I've already used and loved their Typhur Dome air fryers, so I was really curious to see how this new one performs. Inside the box you get a user manual, a wireless probe, the 1750 watt oven, which weighs around 10 kilos. We have an oven mitt, an air fry basket, oven rack, and a non-stick coated baking tray. The wireless thermometer comes with a magnetic case. And I almost missed this, but there is also a crumb tray that slides in underneath the heating elements. The oven has 2 heating elements at the bottom and 3 at the top, with a fan placed up top instead of on the side. A nice touch that should help with more even airflow. There's also a built-in oven light on the right hand side, and the interior has a smooth matte finish. The probe housing is magnetic. It clicks neatly onto the top of the oven when you're not using it and charges automatically. The controls light up as soon as you power it on. I have to say I love that it uses dials instead of touch buttons. The large dial makes it easy to switch between the 12 cooking functions, varying from air fry to dehydrate. There's also a temperature dial, a time dial, and a rack level indicator that tells you exactly where to place your rack for best results. You'll see level 1, 2 or 3 printed on the window itself. A nice thoughtful detail I really appreciate. Another bonus it has is a dedicated preheat button, so you can easily choose whether to skip or include preheating. To switch between Fahrenheit and Celsius, just hold the light button for 3 seconds. The display is large, bright and easy to read. The beeps are soft, thankfully not loud and obnoxious, and the overall design feels really user-friendly. On the left side, the probe mode controls will light up when you remove the wireless probe. It automatically syncs to the oven. Here you'll choose your protein preset, then select the level of doneness with target temperature and current temperatures on display. You need to replace the wireless probe, and after 5 seconds the oven controls on the right side will all light up and you will see a charging icon for the probe. Size wise it's about 14.5 inches tall, 17 inches wide and roughly 17 inches in depth, including the handle and vent. The back vent is covered, pushing the airflow upward instead of straight towards your wall, which I really like. As always, before using it I make sure to wash out all the trays and wipe down the heating elements to remove manufacturing residue. Also wipe down both inside of the oven and the outside to get rid of any packaging residue. Then I run a quick burn off cycle, 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes to get rid of any leftover smells. I did notice that the oven gives off a lot of heat while running. The sides and the glass get quite hot, so definitely keep it a few inches away from your wall, and you will need to use oven mitts, especially if you've got little ones around. I know the wireless probe is the star of the show, but I still like to do a thorough review and share as many of the things I've cooked in this appliance to showcase all its features. You can easily fit about 5 croissants on the rack. For my quick test I did 2 using the toast mode. I set the shade to 2 and slices to 2, and in about 3 minutes the croissants were ready. The outsides were beautifully crisp and flaky and the insides were piping hot, which honestly surprised me. Usually with croissants it's tricky to heat them through without drying them out, but these toasted perfectly. Next I tried frozen naan. I used the reheat function at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 minutes on rack level 2. They heated evenly all the way through. They were nice and soft and warm. Then I tested toast. You can fit up to 6 slices depending on the bread size. I did 4 sourdough and 2 white on toast mode using shade 5 and selected 5 slices. It took just under 6 minutes. The white bread toasted nicely, but the sourdough, like always, needed a couple of more minutes. After adding 2 more minutes, they were also perfect. Once comfortable with the oven, I was ready to tackle a whole chicken for dinner using the wireless probe. You'll notice a faint line on the probe. That's your safety point, and the safety point needs to be inserted into the protein. You want to insert it all the way up to where this curve kind of comes in. The probe itself is ceramic and has 5 sensors. First I set my settings, selecting the chicken preset, and chicken is always set to well done with a target temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. And I was so glad the preheat is auto enabled. You can also disable it, but as I always do, I prefer to preheat when cooking any proteins. While the oven was preheating, I prepped my marinated chicken and inserted the wireless probe horizontally into the thickest part of the chicken breast, making sure the safety point was inserted. With the oven nice and hot, I removed the rack, which I forgot to do earlier, and placed the roasting tray at the lowest level. You can download and use the Typhur app to track your food progress if you want or need to walk away from the oven. Since it was my first full cook, I still kept an eye on it while I prepped my sides, sweet potatoes and broccoli. I seasoned them with oil and a seasoning blend. Then once the chicken hit its target temperature and the oven shut off automatically, the temperature continued to rise slightly as it rested. That's normal and actually perfect for juiciness. And oh my goodness, the chicken looked amazing. It had a beautiful golden brown color. Just to double check, I used my Typhur Instaprobe in the thigh area to make sure that it was fully cooked. So I took out the chicken and I started to work on my veggies. I did give the oven door a quick wipe down to remove all the grease before cooking my veggies. Inserted the rack into the lower level. So while the chicken rested, I poured some of its juices over the veggies for extra flavor, then popped them in the oven. You'll notice that I put my broccoli upside down because the tops always burn. I find doing it like this actually helps. I quickly washed the temperature probe before putting it back in its case and attaching it to the oven so I can activate the oven settings. I used roast mode at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. I turned off the preheat because the oven was already hot and I don't usually bother with veggies anyway. The broccoli came out tender and you can see that the tops didn't burn or char. The sweet potatoes needed another 10 minutes and they finished perfectly. Now going back to the chicken, when I flipped it over, the underside wasn't browned enough. It was a little soggy from the juices and I just wasn't happy with it. So I placed it on the air fryer basket and I put it on the second level with the baking tray underneath it so that it catches any of the dripping juices. I set the oven on air fry mode for 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes and that made all the difference. First I cut into the leg to see how tender it was and take a look at all of that juiciness, and it was super tender. Slicing through the breast and just look at that juice glistening and pulling it apart, it was just amazingly tender. This time I used ghee for marinating, which is also what helped keep the chicken from drying out. You can also use butter, but if you do, mix it with oil so that it doesn't burn, and you will get a super juicy, flavorful and tender chicken, even with the breast staying moist. There's no risk of it over drying. By the end of the day, I was exhausted and I didn't clean the oven that night. For sure, I thought it's going to be impossible to clean the next morning. So after removing whatever big bits I could, I soaked the trays in hot water with Dawn dish soap before moving on to the oven. So let me quickly show you what the oven looked like after cooking that chicken last night, and you can see all the walls are covered and it just looks a mess. Using a warm wet cloth with some dish soap squirted onto it, I started wiping away the grease and surprisingly everything cleaned up really easy. The key is not to cook again before cleaning or that grease will bake on. The oven walls and heating elements wiped clean and it looked brand new again. The trays scrubbed up really easily too. I just used a bristle brush and rinsed everything, making sure to use a strainer to catch all the bits so it doesn't clog my drain. Honestly, I was relieved at how easy this thing was to clean. Of course, I wanted to try the air fryer setting using some frozen foods and I made tater tots. The package said 400 degrees Fahrenheit with preheating for 1 to 2 minutes and to cook for 12 minutes. I just skipped the preheating because I never bother with frozen foods, and I used the temperature of 450 degrees Fahrenheit instead. The extra heat helps deal with the moisture and gives it a crispier texture. After 12 minutes they were golden and crunchy and evenly browned. I didn't have to flip or shake any of these, even with the baking tray underneath, to catch any of the crumbs, which I was really surprised at, which meant the air circulation was great. Of course, my testing is not complete until I don't try something with dough and pizza. First using the proof setting, and I reduced the time to 45 minutes. Since I think that's more than enough time, you can always leave the dough in the oven and it will still continue to proof by conserving energy. And just over an hour later, here is my dough, which I then split to make a pizza. You can fit in a 12-inch pizza, but I'm just making a smaller 8-inch pizza using my round baking pan. I used the preset pizza setting of 365 degrees Fahrenheit for 14 minutes, preheating it first. Then I did have to step away for a few minutes, only to return to a puffed up pizza. Of course, that wasn't the oven's fault. I think I didn't poke enough holes in my dough, so I just deflated it and let it cook. Unfortunately, while the top and the sides looked amazing, the underside was way too soft and light. So I just flipped it over and used the broil setting on high for 5 minutes, and that fixed it, making a beautiful, crisp and fluffy pizza. Take a look at that. When I'm cooking steak, I like to get my veggies out of the way first so that I can focus on the steak. It also gives the oven time to preheat. I used whatever I had left in the fridge, some green beans and mushrooms. When my husband saw what I was doing, he said, "Who makes that? I don't even think those two go together." Honestly, I didn't know either. I was just winging it. I tossed them with a bit of oil, seasoning and a splash of soy sauce to help them caramelize. Skipping the preheat, I cooked them on roast mode at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes. Then I took them out, gave them a good shake, and then I bumped up the temperature to 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 minutes, and oh my gosh, they turned out amazing. Perfectly roasted, slightly caramelized, and I wasn't just impressed with the oven, I was impressed with myself for pulling that combo off. Next up, my T-bone steak. I'll be honest, I've never been able to get this right before, so I figured if this wireless probe really works, this would be the perfect test. I chose the beef preset and selected medium rare. This time I used the air fry basket instead of the roasting pan because I didn't want the steak sitting in its juices, just like what happened with the chicken. I wanted proper air circulation around it. I left the basket in to get nice and hot too. That helps to sear the steak. While that was going on, I inserted the probe into the thickest part of the steak before placing it on the basket. I didn't time it exactly, but it took somewhere around 17 to 20 minutes, I want to say. Once the oven beeped, I left the probe in for a bit just to see how high the temperature would climb before it started dropping. And sure enough, it rose a few degrees just like it should because it is still continuing to cook. I brushed butter on both sides, which I always do to get that extra rich flavor. The outside of the steak looked really good, although I thought it would have browned a bit more, but then I realized, through fault of my own, that I should have changed the cooking function to perhaps air fry or even broil. Because when you are using the probe, you have 4 functions to choose from. It just defaults to roast, and I completely missed it. But now I know for next time, and so do you. After letting it rest for about 10 minutes, I sliced into it. The thickest part was perfect medium rare. The thinner top edges leaned more towards well done. But honestly, this was the best T-bone steak I've ever made. First time ever I didn't overcook it. All in all, the Typhur Sync Oven has been a total workhorse for us. The wireless probe is the star. I love that it comes with a built-in magnetic case to store on the oven itself and a 50-hour battery, so it's always ready to go. Although the magnetic case isn't to be washed, the probe itself is dishwasher safe, as well as the trays, although I prefer to wash everything by hand, and you've seen how easy it is to wash these trays out. It's a big 27-quarter capacity oven, which is great for larger meals, but just be mindful of your counter space, especially when you open the door. It does hang off a bit. You want to make sure to leave enough room away from your back wall. We've been using it non-stop for everyday cooking, from toast to naan and all sorts of snacks in between, and even our big meals. I just don't always have the camera rolling. It's definitely faster than a traditional oven if you don't want to fire up the big one, and it's really versatile. You don't need a separate toaster or air fryer, and honestly the air fryer setting is impressive. Compared to other ovens, this one is quiet while running and it does give off gentle beeps, which is nice, but it does get very hot all over and you can feel the heat radiate from it. Something to keep in mind if you have a tight kitchen or small ones around. Overall, if you want precision, convenience and versatility all in one countertop, this one's worth it, especially if you cook a lot and like the idea of tracking your food perfectly with the wireless probe and also the Typhur app. You can literally walk away from it. If you've been hearing all those stories about toxic air fryers and want a safer, more versatile option, one that even comes with a wireless probe to take the guesswork out of cooking, this is worth checking out. I've linked it in the description and Typhur has given me a 10% discount code to share with you, so don't miss it. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please do leave a like and give it a hype in the first 7 days of its release. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. If you are new to my channel, please do consider subscribing, and I hope to catch you all in my next video.